Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he hopes U.S. brokered talks in Geneva next week are substantive, but adds Ukraine is too often asked to make concessions. He accuses Moscow of delaying progress by changing its lead negotiator as U.S., Russian, and Ukrainian delegations prepare to meet in Switzerland. The U.S. Justice Department sends lawmakers a legally required letter outlining redactions in files linked to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The letter lists high-profile names referenced in the records without detailing the context, including individuals who may have had no direct contact with Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. Britain and European allies say Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is killed with a poison linked to a dart frog toxin 2 years after his death in a Siberian prison. UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper has said that only the Russian government has the means and motive, while Moscow dismisses the claim as an information campaign. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen says she believes President Donald Trump still wants to own Greenland, despite recently toning down his threats. Speaking in Munich, she stresses Greenland is not for sale as security tensions between Copenhagen and Washington continue. Iranian opposition figure Reza Pahlavi says U.S. military intervention could save lives and urges President Donald Trump not to spend too long negotiating a nuclear deal with Tehran. The exiled son of Iran's former Shah tells Reuters he believes the clerical government is nearing collapse and says an attack could accelerate its fall. A media review finds judges have ruled more than 4,400 times since October that the Trump administration is unlawfully detaining immigrants. Despite the sweeping legal rebuke, the government continues to hold some detainees even after courts declared the policy illegal. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says Russia has suffered around 65,000 troop losses in the past 2 months of fighting in Ukraine. Speaking in Munich, he adds the alliance is strong enough that Moscow would not currently dare to attack NATO. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agree at the White House to work to cut Iran's oil exports to China, according to Axios. A senior U.S. official says the two leaders plan to apply maximum pressure to curb Tehran's energy sales. Now we start this hour with breaking news. Russia has strongly rejected claims by European allies that late Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny was killed by Russia using toxin from poison dart frogs while being held in the Arctic penal colony. This comes after Britain, France, Germany, Sweden, and the Netherlands said in a joint statement that analysis of samples from Navalny's body conclusively confirmed the presence of epibetidine, a toxin found in poison dart frogs in South America and not found naturally in Russia. The Russian government, which has repeatedly denied any responsibility for Navalny's death, has dismissed the latest allegations as a Western propaganda hoax. According to the Russian state's TASS news agency, while the Russian embassy in London said one must ask what kind of person would believe this nonsense about a frog. Now for this, we welcome retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior geopolitical and strategic expert, joins us live from Jaipur. Thank you very much, Major General Sudhakarji, for joining us. Good to see you. Good morning. Now looking at this, Navalny, the Russian figure, do you think there could be other groups who would be motivated to do this to him too. What are we to make of these latest reports, both by Europe, the statements, and the frog case, and also Russia? Major General, you might be muted here.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good morning, Asuma. Thank you for inviting me for your show.
Thank you.
Very interesting question you have raised. Well, under the circumstances, without substantive evidence, it will be premature and incorrect to point a finger at Russia and Russian authority for the death of Navalny. But having said that, whatever is coming out in the open source, without any smoke, there won't be fire, and vice versa. So there are not one or two countries, there are 5 countries who have together, based on the clinical analysis, they have narrowed down to a poison in the body of this gentleman, may his soul rest in peace, Navalny. And they say epibetidine. Epibetidine is a toxin found in poison dart frogs in South America and not found naturally in Russia. So if this poison has been found in his body, one needs to go to the background, little bit of background, and thereafter I'll roll back the question to you. The background of Navalny being in the prison, he was imprisoned in one of the Arctic prisons, and the issues, charges against him was something related to extremism, terrorism kind of things. So he was already in the bad books of the authorities, and he might have actually indulged in, at the moment I don't have the sufficient data to support my articulation, but he might have had lots of activities undertaken by him which would have antagonized the official authorities in the chain or in the hierarchy of Russia. And since he was very vocal, one of the few persons who was very, very vocal against the decisions taken by Russia against Ukraine and otherwise, he would have actually fallen prey or he would have become a victim. So this is all speculation at the moment, but going by the scientific finding of 5 countries of Europe, it actually points a finger towards the Russian authority that he was injected with this particular poison dart frogs, and maybe the medical science would do well to investigate it further and come out with some tangible and substantive inputs so that these things can be avoided by taking the host countries or affected countries on board and putting pressure and also making them commit to these rule of law. Only then things will improve. Back to you, Asuma.
Thank you very much, Major General Sadakarji, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for a later discussion as well. Now we have another breaking news. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has met with his Canadian counterpart Anita Anand at the Munich Security Conference and praised Prime Minister Mark Carney's recent visit to China as fruitful. Anand has said the visit had been a great success and opened a new era of Canada-China relations. Now for this, we welcome Mr. Matthew Vadrum. He's a journalist and author, joins us live from Washington. Thank you very much, Mr. Vadrum, for joining us. Good morning. Now looking at this, China and Canada's relationship has been very sensitive, especially just during Trudeau's government. Now, do you think things are changing, and what is moving them closer?
Well, they had been pretty close when Justin Trudeau was Prime Minister of Canada, and it looks like they want to move things even closer. I should say, though, that the Foreign Minister of Canada and the Foreign Minister of China, meeting and having a sit down at an international conference is not in any way unusual, but we do know that Canada has been reaching out to China, especially in reaction to President Trump's fairly ferocious rhetoric towards Canada, saying that he wanted to annex Canada, saying that he wanted to annex Greenland, which is right beside Canada, and antagonizing Canada. So, I think Canada does want to have a closer relationship with China, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's what the two foreign ministers talked about at the security conference.
Right. And since we know that they have had some issues with Huawei and
Right.
yeah, what do you think about that? Do you think they are going to be, or they discussed that?
They may have. Huawei, the telecom, I guess, or technology maker in China has been accused of installing spyware so that it can, on its devices, so it can monitor what's going on overseas. And so the United States is very suspicious of Huawei, and yet Canada, has expressed some concerns, but hasn't been nearly as suspicious as the United States. Remember, the United States is very sensitive about TikTok, the social media site, and they're so serious about it that Congress passed a law saying that TikTok's Chinese connected owners must divest the company. So America's very national security conscious about this kind of thing. Canada has some concerns, but it is less national security conscious about Huawei than the United States is. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was discussed by the two foreign ministers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vadam, for sharing that insight. Now we move on to U.S. The Pentagon is considering severing its relationship with Anthropic over the artificial intelligence firm's insistence on maintaining some limitations on how the U.S. military uses its models. According to reports in American media, this comes after outrage by the Anthropic over the usage of its LLM cloud in the raid that captured Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro in Caracas. Now we move on to Europe. At the Munich Security Conference, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham made it clear that there is no room for negotiation with Iran. He stressed that the current regime, which he compared to religious Nazis, is hell-bent on advancing its religious goals, and therefore negotiations are not an option, according to him. Graham has also criticized the idea of backing out of the situation in Iran, calling it a mistake worse than the Syrian Red Line or Afghanistan. Has reaffirmed his support for the regime change, specifically backing the Iranian people who want a better future. Let's listen into what the U.S. Senator has shared.
I believe they're the weakest they've been since 1979. It is a regime with American blood on its hand. It is a great disruptor of the region. It's a religious theocracy that if they could get a nuclear weapon, they would use it to advance their religious goals, which are three: purify Islam, destroy the Jewish state, and come after us. Hitler wrote a book, he wanted to kill all the Jews. Nobody believed him. I believe the Ayatollah and his regime, not the Iranian people, are religious fanatics, religious Nazis. Hitler wanted a master race, they want a master religion. So why not I mention that? There's no negotiating with these people, in my view. They're hell-bent on enacting an agenda based on religion that teaches them to lie, teaches them to destroy in the name of God.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have agreed to apply maximum pressure on Iran, particularly targeting its oil sales to China. China accounts for more than 80% of Iran's oil exports. Any reduction in that trade would mean lower oil revenue for Iran. Now we welcome back Mr. Matthew Vadam. He's a journalist and author, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Vadam, for staying with us.
Yes.
Now, looking at Iran and U.S., is the negotiation diplomacy still open, or are we seeing more pressurized version or pressure from U.S.? And do you think U.S. patience towards Iran is running thin?
Well, yes, I think it is. And I think that Senator Lindsey Graham's assessment of the situation is accurate. I don't think I don't think the Islamic totalitarians in Tehran can be reasoned with at all. I think they are hell bent on America's destruction and on Israel's destruction, and on imposing their crazed, fanatical interpretation of religion on the entire world. So I'm not sure why the United States is negotiating unless they really think that they can get Iran to drop its atomic weapons, its nuclear weapons program, which I don't think Iran will, because Iran views this as an existential matter. They think that they need to have nuclear weapons. They think that they need to continue enriching uranium to that end in order to survive in today's world. But the fact remains that Iran is still the leading governmental sponsor of terrorism in the world, and is an avowed enemy of the United States. I suspect the United States is so focused on talks because they're formulating a battle plan. They're figuring out how to attack Iran, and they don't quite have all the details worked out yet. I've been wrong about stuff before. I could be wrong about that. Maybe Trump really does want to cut a deal and leave the regime in place as long as it gets rid of its nuclear program. But that, to me, that doesn't, and to a lot of other people, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Iran is always going to be a threat to the United States and to the world. If it has a nuclear program, they cannot be trusted with nukes. And, with any luck, the United States will abandon these talks and take action if the United States believes it is prudential to do so. So that's my take on it.
And last, if you could briefly tell us, what's Mr. Reza Pahlavi's role? And, we see a lot of statements issued by him recently. Do you think he is a legitimate, or how do you analyze his popularity? Yeah.
You're talking about the pretender, the
Shah's
would-be
son.
Shah of Iran,
Yes.
the prince.
Yes.
Who I think that the United States doesn't view him as a serious contender to be head of state in any newly formed government in Iran. In fact, Pahlavi has more or less said the same thing. He said that he would lead. I guess he'd like to be king. He'd like to be Shah, but I think he recognizes that that there are limitations here, and he's offered to head some sort of a transitional government as Iran moves to another form of government, presumably, some kind of embracing some kind of democratic structure. So, Pahlavi has a role to play, and a lot of people look to him as an important leader. But I don't think the United States thinks that he'd be a good choice to head up any sort of permanent government in a reformed Iranian republic.
Right. With that, I'd like to thank Mr. Matthew Adam for sharing that insight with us. Thank you very much. Now, we stay in Iran. Around 250,000 people gathered peacefully at Munich's Munich in one of the city's largest demonstrations in recent years, calling for the end of Iran's current regime and expressing support for exiled opposition figure Reza Pahlavi. Munich police has noted that no significant disruptions have been occurred during the event despite the large turnout. Let's listen into what some protesters have shared.
Today, we all coming from all around the world. We just have one thing to say. We want to have making Iran great again. and we all coming from all different parts of Europe. We are coming from Sweden, for example, but this is what we want. We want our Pahlavi, our Shah, our king back, because we want the fucking regime to change. That's it, enough.
Es ist gerade so eine schlechte Situation. Es wurden über 40.000 Menschen gestorben, leider. Und die ganze Welt weiß, wir wollen alle zeigen, dass das iranische Regime jetzt gerade läuft. Das sind alle Terroristen. Wir wollen dieses Regime nicht mehr haben. Diese ganzen Menschen wollen wir nicht mehr.
Meanwhile, thousands of protesters gathered in Toronto in support of the Lion and Sun Revolution, carrying flags and signs featuring Reza Pahlavi, the son of Iran's last Shah, as part of a coordinated global day of action against Iran's current government. Protesters marched chanting slogans and waving pre-Islamic Revolution Iranian flags. Some carried placards reading "Regime Change, Iran Now." Let's listen into what some protesters have shared.
People just want their basic human rights. We're not asking for much, but every time there's an uprising, it's like getting worse and worse, and they're killing more people. So as a young person, I had to leave Iran myself to come here and build just a normal life.
Our voice is very clear. We are repeated our King Reza Pahlavi. He is our leader in this revolution for Iran because the Pahlavi government was helpful for us before the Islamic regime dictator here, and he is our alternative here, and we want to change this dictator regime because this change is very perfect for all world and all government to help to be peace for all government, because the terrorism started with Islamic regime of Iran.
Now we move on to Ukraine. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky met with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio at the Munich Security Conference to discuss Ukraine's security and the ongoing war. According to reports, Rubio emphasized that President Donald Trump wants a solution that ends the bloodshed once and for all. Zelensky also spoke with Trump's envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner ahead of the trilateral talks in Geneva. Meanwhile, U.S. Ambassador Matthew Whitaker stated that China has the power to end the war by halting oil and gas purchases and cutting off technology ties with Russia. Now we welcome back retired Major General Siddharkarji. He's a senior geopolitical and strategic expert, joins us live from Jaipur. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us.
Thank you so much.
You know, last year it was not Marco Rubio, but I think it was J.D. Vance who was sent to Europe for the same fair. But this year they have changed and they've sent Marco Rubio instead. And also now we know that Russia is changing their delegation for the upcoming talks as well. So what's this strategy behind both countries changing their delegations, and how will this affect the talks?
First is change of delegation, going by the personalities and the subject specific per se. It is the subject which is being dealt by Marco Rubio. J.D. Vance is the vice president. He may have an overall bird's eye view of all the issues. One. Number two, Marco Rubio, he has demonstrated very astute diplomatic skills in the past. He has learned the art of saying no without saying so. So he does it very well without ruffling feathers. And because the transatlantic relationship has been subjected to lots of harsh response metrics from the USA. When J.D. Vance came last time also, he went on to use very offensive language, which has not gone down too well amongst the NATO members. And coercion and pushing people and countries in 21st century is not something which the Europeans will take, because after all, America is nothing but the big child. They themselves, they keep calling, they're the big child of Europe. And so it doesn't go down too well. So what, they are a superpower. So third and most important thing is, being a subject expert and the leader who's dealing with this Ukraine and Russia, Marco Rubio, he has the caliber and to actually listen to people. The biggest problem today, what is happening, whether it is the Central Europe or Russia-Ukraine war or the Middle East, is we stop listening to the opposite sides or the multiple relevant stakeholders. This is my take. I have found Marco Rubio, he, without compromising his status of looking after the foreign relations of a superpower, he is a good listener. He connects with people, because to find a lasting and permanent solution, one has to actually read between the line and navigate through very serious complexities. So it is he who has to actually put things in perspective and develop a roadmap, and only then things will look up. That is my take at the moment. Back to you, Asuma.
So how do you think, so also Ukraine, we saw Ukraine say that they're changing, Russia is changing the delegation because they don't want to agree on peace or something. What's your take on that?
My take on the whole issue is that change of delegation also creates a kind of a intrinsic, inherent depth to the organization, and negotiation creates negotiation space. Second, Russia having changed the delegation, what it means and implies is that the goalposts are binding, and they cannot be changed. The goalpost, when we talk about the neutrality of Ukraine, it will not join the NATO, number one. Number two, it has to cede those 20% of land to Russia. Out here, there are more than one issue which are negotiable. I don't think Russia will agree to it, particularly the northeastern portion of Donbass. That is the one which is under occupation of Ukraine. Russia has been insisting that Ukraine has to vacate that 10% of Donbass area and cede it to Russia. So whether it happens or not, I really can't say at the moment, but that is what Russia will continue to demand. And if you look towards Odessa side, Kherson side, Russian troops are sitting just about 55-57 kilometers away from Kherson. That they are posing a direct threat to Odessa, Odessa being the gateway port of Ukraine. If that falls in the near future, well, you can take it that this conflict will continue unending manner, and Ukraine will be absolutely under the domination of Russia. So therefore, when you look at all these aspects, what emerges is that the bottom line negotiation parameters would have been defined by Russia in order to give depth to the process of dialogue and diplomacy. The teams are being changed with new agendas. New agenda means nothing. It is the same old goalposts which have been set by Russia. Change of people may give a new kind of environment, and also engage with such authorities across the borders, which may give them negotiating space. That is all that comes to my mind at the moment. And last is that seizing the, bringing the mindless conflict or the ceasefire based on as is, where is, plus neutral force to look after and enforce, are some of the issues which they may have at the moment. But I don't think Putin will ever agree to surrender anything that has been captured by the Russians, and they are under the occupation of Russia.
Thank you very much, Major General, for joining us and sharing that deep insight with us on NewsX World. Now we move to Greenland. Greenland's Prime Minister Hans Fredrik Nielsen has emphasized the importance of military missions in Greenland, particularly the Arctic Sentry mission. Speaking at the Munich Security Conference, Nielsen has agreed on the security concerns in Greenland's backyard and affirmed that Greenland is committed to contributing to efforts in the region. Nielsen has also highlighted Greenland's partnership with NATO, noting that the alliance represents not only security but also democracy values and respect for international law. He has stressed the ongoing importance of NATO, especially amid global conflicts in Europe and the Middle East. Let's listen to what he has shared.
First of all, I think it's important we get the mission in Greenland and the Arctic Sentry. We have said from the beginning we agree on the concerns about the security around our backyard in Greenland, and so doing more in that frame is something we absolutely agree on, all of us. And we are happy to contribute because we also know we have a responsibility in Greenland to lift where we can, and that's one of the places, so we are happy for it. We don't have military in Greenland. We are part of Denmark, but we have a lot of presence from Danish military in Greenland. But first of all, and most important of all, we are part of the transatlantic cooperation, and we are so committed to that. And doing more under that frame is a responsibility we all have. And also doing more in the high north and around our country is also something we all agree on, so we are happy to contribute. And we have a very close partnership with our European friends. We are also building on a lot of things in terms of the European Union, so I think it's just great to be here and to like state it again, and we will do it over and over again if it's necessary.
Now for this, we welcome back Mr. Matthew Radom. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Radom, for staying with us. Just two questions for you. Thank you. Now, is U.S. still eyeing Greenland, and also how alert should Greenland be?
President Trump still wants to have greater American influence over Greenland, but it appears he's given up on the idea of annexing it by force, and he still wants American influence there. He still wants access to its mineral wealth, including rare earths, and he still wants to increase U.S. Military presence there in order to deter adventurism by Russia and China, which both are laying claim to the Arctic. China's claim seems especially weak since China is not even remotely close to the Arctic. Russia, at least, has a great deal of coastline along the Arctic Ocean, so they have a more valid claim. But the United States still wants to have an impact. That's for sure.
Right. And how effective do you think NATO is right now about this whole Greenland situation?
Well, NATO has introduced this operation called Arctic Sentry, and I believe that is Germany, France, and the United Kingdom are sending troops to Greenland to bolster defensive capabilities there. And some of that is in response to U.S. threats to Trump's threats to annex Greenland, and some of it is, I suspect, to deter aggression to deter Russia and China from moving into Arctic and trying to harvest its wealth. So, this is probably a good development, and in a sense, they're playing into President Trump's hands because one of the things he wanted after raising such a fuss, threatening to seize Greenland by force, was he wanted the European powers to invest more in defending Greenland's sovereignty in the Arctic. So, no matter how this develops, I think Trump ends up being, after all of his blustering and threats, I think he ends up winning.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Radom, for highlighting that and staying with us throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to U.S. and hockey. The U.S. men's hockey team overcame a first-period deficit to defeat Denmark by 6-3 and improved to 2-0 in the 2026 Winter Olympics. Despite trailing 2-1 after the first period due to some goals, Team USA's offensive firepower surged in the second period with goals from Brady Tkachuk, Jack Eichel, and Noah Hannifin. Though Denmark pulled within one goal late in the second period, the US sealed the win with additional goals from Jake Grenzel and Jack Hughes in the third period. The match has been dubbed the Battle for Greenland, following U.S. President Donald Trump's controversial comments about acquiring the mineral-rich territory. Let's now listen into what some of the Denmark's fans have shared before the match.
We more or less just laugh at him, more or less. Unless you ask our politicians, they take it seriously. We don't. He can try us any time. We only lost one more, so he can try us any time. Politics has nothing to do with sports. These are athletes, not politicians. But if Trump wants to, he can join your team. Let's see how that works.
They're calling it, we're also for fun, but hey, it's only for fun. I mean, the battle for Greenland, we have to also be realistic. What is that all about, you know? It's a couple of guys sitting behind the desk trying to rule something. I mean, it's just ridiculous, actually, but it's the way the world works right now, so we'll just have to see.
Now we move to AI news. In a world where artificial intelligence is transforming industries despite the outrage, a small part of Hollywood seems to be embracing the change. After being sidelined by a production slowdown, visual effects artist Michael Eng has turned to AI to reinvent his career. He enrolled in Curious Refuge, an online school offering courses on filmmaking using AI. The school has already trained over 10,000 students, including industry professionals who now seek to learn new skills. The rise of AI-powered filmmaking is creating job opportunities and reducing financial barriers, allowing new creators to emerge with AI-trained artists in high demand. Studios and startups are fighting for talent. The industry is evolving, and Curious Refuge is at the heart of this transformation, helping shape the future of entertainment. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news and updates from around the world.